My wife and I like to travel, and we started doing some cruises a few years ago. And so, I don't know how many years ago it was, my wife and I flew to Florida. We stayed there for a few days before getting, I think it was on our first cruise we'd ever been on. And so, I have to go from Canada to Florida. You have to go through customs, and then you get on the cruise, and you have to go through another thing, and then you go to another country, and then you come back into the U.S., and so we're constantly going through customs, and they pepper you with the same questions. Do you have any weapons? Do you have any drugs? Do you have any fruit? And each time we answered, no, we don't have any of those things. So we get off the cruise, and we're coming back into the U.S. We have to go through customs again, and we get the same questions, and we gave the same answers. But this time, they decided to search my wife's carry-on luggage. And they opened the bag, and inside the luggage, there is an orange. My first thought was, oh no. I'm married to a criminal and a liar. No, actually, I didn't think that. But upon finding this orange, all friendliness from this customs officer disappears, and now she's threatening us with a hefty fine. And she says to us in this really tough voice, do you know how serious it is to lie to us? Well, we tried to explain that we had totally forgotten about it. We'd gone through customs 2 or 3 times. We didn't even realize we'd broken the law. And she just looked at us sternly, and I'm thinking, great. I wonder how big this fine is going to be. And then she said to us this. She says, okay, I'm going to let it go this time, but don't let it ever happen again. And ever since that time, I always ask my wife, do you have any fruit? Is there anything we need to declare? And as we walked to our car, I realized that we just experienced something called grace. Now, there's a law against bringing certain fruits into the United States. We were even questioned about it. We were given the opportunity to admit that we did have something. And according to the law, not remembering that there's an orange in your carry-on luggage is not a very good defense. We were guilty, and we deserved, at least my wife deserved, a fine. But we were shown grace. For no other reason except that the agent decided against punishment in favor of this thing called grace. Last week, I began a series on grace. It'll probably take us up close to Christmas time. You may remember we looked at the surprising and unexpected love that God has shown to us. And I mentioned that this love is really the foundation for all that's going to follow in this series. Every sermon is going to kind of come back to this thing, is God loves us. And so we talked about his love is unfailing, his acceptance is unconditional, and his forgiveness is unlimited. Well, today we're going to look at a battle that has existed from the very beginning of time up until today. This battle is between 2 different entities. It's between law and grace. And let me explain what I mean by that. So first of all, the issue is there's something called the law. We live in a world of laws. There are tax laws, driving laws, business laws, building laws. There are laws about dogs and cats. There are laws about keeping your grass cut and your walk shoveled. Most laws, we would probably say, okay, I don't necessarily like them, but they seem to make sense. But there are some laws that you just have to wonder about. For example, in Alabama, it is illegal for the driver of a car to be blindfolded while operating that car. Seems like it should be obvious. I like this one. In Utah, it is illegal to detonate a nuclear weapon. Now, you can own one, I guess, just can't detonate it. In Toronto, you cannot drag a dead horse down the street on Sunday. Guess you can do it Saturday, Wednesday if you want, but not on Sunday. In Calgary, not very far from here, you can ride your horse on just about any street, anytime you want in Calgary. But you just have to stop and clean up whatever mess it drops. Drayton Valley, not very far from here either. It is illegal to drive a truck under a structure that has less clearance than the height of said truck. Like, who would have thought of that? If there was no law, I probably would have just done it and hit the abutment. Now, there's other laws. For example, you know the Murphy's Law, right? If anything can go wrong, it will. But have you heard about Mary Ann's Law? You will always find what you're not looking for. It's true. Or the Consumer's Law. A 60-day warranty guarantees that the product will self-destruct on the 61st day. All had that happen. Or Balance's Law. How long a minute is dependent on which side of the bathroom door you're on. Yeah, we all relate to that. Everywhere you turn, there are laws. And in some ways, it's the same with God. And so when you read the Bible, you're going through, you quickly discover there's something very near the beginning called the 10 Commandments. Not 10 suggestions, 10 Commandments. These are laws. And then sprinkled throughout the rest of the Bible, there are various commands. Do this, don't do that. Now, the reason these laws are given is for our own good, for our protection, for our benefit, not to kill our fun. It's because it's good for us. And the reasons that these laws are posted in the Bible is so that we would know whether we're doing the right thing or not. You see, if there is a law in place, you don't have to live in ignorance, wondering whether you're living in compliance with the expected behavior. I think it would be extremely unfair of any policeman in Sylvan Lake to give you a speeding ticket if there are no signs anywhere in the town that says this is the speed limit. That just wouldn't be right. You say, well, there's no posted signs. I don't care. That's just the law. Well, it would also be unfair if God was to hold us accountable for laws that he never ever told us about. So the purpose of the law, the reason they're written down for us in God's word, is so that we will know the difference between right and wrong. That's what Romans chapter 7 and verse 7 says in the Message. The law code has a perfectly legitimate function. Without its clear guidelines for right and wrong, moral behavior would be mostly guesswork. We just say, I don't know if this is right or wrong. I'm just going to take a guess. So the law in itself is a good thing. It kind of defines the boundaries for us so that we don't ignorantly run afoul of it and be held accountable for something we didn't even know was true. My wife and I traveled to Portugal last year, 18 days, and we rented a car, and I'm driving everywhere throughout Portugal, from one end to the other, and also, as I'm going along, I'm hoping that as I'm driving that I'm not breaking any laws. But I don't know for sure because I've never lived in Portugal. I don't know what the laws are there. I know what they are here. I don't know what they are there. I didn't grow up there. And so maybe, we didn't get caught on anything, but maybe we broke some laws that we didn't even know about because they weren't posted, they weren't put anywhere. Now, I realize that there's some people in the world that would argue, you know what, it's better if there's no laws at all. Well, you think about it for a minute, that alternative would only bring chaos into everything. Everyone would be doing what they think is expedient or right or even self-serving. I like your car, I don't like mine, I'm gonna steal yours, that just feels good, I'm taking it. There's no laws, I can do whatever I want. So in order that we are protected, God gives us laws. Laws are given to point us in the right direction so we're not doing something silly or hurtful to either ourselves or to somebody else. So the purpose of the law is to inform us of the difference between sin and righteousness, between evil and good. And so this is a major point that we have to kind of come to a conclusion on, which is the law of God is a good thing. So that's the issue, the law. But here's the problem. It's our failure. You see, knowing the law doesn't necessarily mean we obey it. And that brings us to this really big thought that I want us to get today. The problem is not the law. It's not God's do this or don't do that. The problem is our failure to keep what God has given to us. Now, you and I know this. As hard as we try to keep these commandments of God, we find ourselves very quickly disobeying them, breaking them. And sometimes it seems like the harder we try, the more we struggle, the less we succeed. In fact, sometimes it almost seems as if the law of God is actually hurting us more than it is helping us. Because so often we find ourselves on the wrong side of what he has said. That's what Paul was talking about in Romans chapter 7, verse 8. He says, sin, seizing the opportunity afforded by the commandment, produced in me every kind of covetous desire. Now, let me explain what I mean by this, what Paul means by this. Let's say you're walking along a sidewalk, maybe you're walking through a park, maybe you're going through a building, and you're just kind of minding your own business, and then you see a sign. And the sign says, wet paint, do not touch. What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it, oh, I'm so glad they put that sign there, because I'm going to steer clear of that. I'm going to keep as far away as I can out of that object. I don't want paint to get on me. That sign is warning me of consequences. Am I ever glad that somebody thought enough of me to put this sign out? Probably not. You probably don't think that at all. If you're like most people, what do you do? And you do. You want to find out, is it really wet or not? Is the sign telling me the truth or not? Now, here's the problem. If there had been no sign, I would have walked right by here. I would not even have noticed this thing. I've gone by it 100 times. But this time there's a sign and it says, don't touch. And guess what I do? I reach out and I touch it just to see if it's really wet or not. There's something in our nature that says, go ahead, touch it, see if it's really wet. Now, you see this in children all the time. If you don't believe in we're born with a sin nature, then you don't have a 2-year-old. You've never had one. So a parent sees their 2-year-old with some food in their hands, that they're at the table, and the parent just knows what's going on. The kid's ready to throw the food somewhere. And so the parent says to the kid, don't throw that food. And there's a certain look that comes over their face, and while they're looking right at you, looking into your eyes, they slowly lift their hands and they throw the food. You told me not to do it. I'm going to throw it anyway, just to see what happens. You see, there's this propensity in all of us to want to disobey the laws. Now, someone may say, well, why put the do not touch sign up anyway? Why even say something is wrong if it only entices you to do it? And in other words, what we're doing is we're saying, well, let's blame the law for our problems. Yeah, okay, I touched the paint, but if the sign hadn't been there, I wouldn't have done it. And now I've got paint all over my hands because of that stupid sign. No. It's not the sign's problem. It's you wanted to test the sign. And so Paul answers that question in Romans chapter 7 and verse 12. He says, the law, the sign is holy and the commandment is holy. It's righteous and good. The problem is not the sign. You can't blame the law when you break the law. The law is there to protect you. The law is to help you live a life that is fulfilling and good. Now, if the sign wasn't there and you touched it, you're just walking along and it's totally wet paint. You say, for whatever reason today, I feel like touching this. And then you get your hands wet. You're going to say, like, what idiot didn't put a sign up? If you're going to put wet paint, you've got to do something to protect us. So we're going to blame management for not warning us if we touch it when there's no sign. But it's not the law's fault that you ignored it. And so what we have is this dilemma. We're faced with this dilemma. The very thing that was given to protect us and to draw us closer to God now becomes the thing which shows how rebellious we are and how far away we are from Him because of our inclination to disobedience, to breaking the law. That's what Paul says in 7:10 of Romans. I found that the very commandment that was intended to bring life actually brought death. So the law is really good for only one thing. The law tells me what is right and what is wrong. But what it doesn't do, it doesn't give me the power to obey that law. Or as one writer said, the law is the light that reveals how dirty the room is, but not the broom that sweeps it clean. The law is the light that reveals how dirty the room is, not the broom that sweeps it clean. And so Paul, think of this, the Apostle Paul, this great man of God, later on in chapter 7 is going to express the struggle and the frustration that probably all of us have experienced. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do. I have the desire to do what is good, but I just can't carry it out. For what I do is not the good I want to do. No, the evil I do not want to do, that I keep on doing. And so Paul says, I see the don't touch sign. And I know that I shouldn't touch it. And I know I'm taking some pretty big chances by doing it, but there's something in me, in the core of my being, that causes me to go against my better judgment. And I find that the consequences are what I feared. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand today because I think everyone would raise their hand. I think all of us can identify with Paul. We find ourselves saying something very similar. I knew it was wrong to lie. I knew it was wrong to steal. I knew it was wrong to have that affair. And yet I went ahead anyway. Maybe I wasn't thinking very much about it, or maybe I was thinking that somehow this time the law is not going to apply to me, I'll get away with it. Only to find out it doesn't work that way. So if the law isn't the problem, then it means that I am. So what do I do? Or as Paul says about himself, what a wretched man I am. If the law is good, and it's meant to bring me closer to God, and yet if I'm a complete failure in keeping it, where do I turn? What is a person to do? You cannot pretend that the law doesn't exist. Ignorance, as we found with the orange, is not bliss. You can't just ignore the law because there's consequences to breaking it. And obviously, if we look into our own lives, we're not very good at keeping the law. So is there an alternative? Is there a way out of this dilemma? And thankfully, the answer is yes. The solution is Jesus Christ. You see, there is a solution, and that solution is found in the person and the work of Jesus. Let me take you back to Romans chapter 7 for a minute. Paul's going to talk about this problem that we all face. And to help us understand, he's going to give us an illustration. And he does it from marriage. Here's his argument. He says, despite the reality of broken marriages, there's still a law of marriage that says, when you have made vows to each other, you are binding yourself to that person for life. And it's only upon the death of one of those two parties that freedom is granted for the survivor to marry somebody else. And so Paul says, in a sense, it's like we are married to the law. And now the reason we're married to it is because the law of God applies to every single person. Doesn't matter whether you agree with it, doesn't matter whether you like it, doesn't matter whether you're ignorant of it, it applies to everyone. And the law of God that he gives to us apply to all of us, and we're to keep those laws. But the problem is, we already know, we've tried that. It doesn't work very good. So what is our hope? Well, Paul said there's only one way to deal with this, and that is that we've got to get out of this arrangement because one of us has to die. It's going to be either us or it's going to be the law. And Paul says it's not going to be the law. The law of God is eternal. It's forever. So the only solution then is for us to die to the law. And that's what Paul is talking about in the next few verses, chapter 7 and verse 4. He says, so my brothers, you also, he's talking to believers in Jesus now, you also died to the law through the body of Christ that you might belong to another. Now we have to know something, and it's really important here. Paul, in these chapters in Romans, says there's only two ways to please God. One is that you are absolutely perfect, no exceptions, no wrong actions, no wrong thoughts, no attitudes that are against God, no motivations. You are perfect in every way. And if you reach that, if you can get to that stage from day one, then you please God and you don't need Jesus. The problem is that no one's ever reached that point. Just look at a 2-year-old, as I said earlier. The only person that's ever reached perfection is Jesus. Not reached it. He was perfect from the beginning, and he is today. So Paul says there's a second solution. It's this. Die to the law. Accept Christ's righteousness as your own, which he gives to us as a free gift. So without doing anything to earn it or achieve it by our own efforts, God gives to us this opportunity to get into right standing with him through the perfection of Jesus. And here's how we can conclude that whole idea. It's not by what we do. It's by who we know. It's not based on our own efforts. It's based on our relationship with Christ. It's not because we have earned it. It's because somebody paid it and gave it to us. That's the story. That's the meaning of grace. God's riches at Christ's expense. Now, does that mean, if I die to the law, does that mean that I no longer have to listen to it and I can speed through Sylvan Lake doing 100 miles an hour? I can just ignore whatever tax laws are out there? No, it doesn't mean that at all. What it does mean, though, is if I break the law, either by accident or even by choice, I can immediately fall back on this thing called grace. And I am instantly and completely forgiven for whatever I've done to break the law. In closing today, I want to read you an excerpt from a book. It's Philip Yancey, What's So Amazing About Grace. A young girl grows up on a cherry orchard just above Traverse City, Michigan. Her parents, a bit old-fashioned, tend to overreact to her nose ring, the music she listens to, the length of her skirts. They ground her a few times and she seethes inside. I hate you, she screams at her father when he knocks on the door of her room after an argument. And that night she puts into effect a plan that she's mentally rehearsed scores of times. She runs away. She's visited Detroit only once before on a bus trip with her church youth group to watch the Tigers play. Because newspapers in Traverse City report in lurid detail the gangs, the drugs, the violence in downtown Detroit, she concludes this is probably the last place her parents will look for her. California, maybe. Florida, not Detroit. Her second day there, she meets a man who drives the biggest car she's ever seen. He offers her a ride, buys her lunch, arranges a place for her to stay. Gives her some pills that make her feel better than she's ever felt before. She was right all along, she decides. Her parents were keeping her from all the fun. The good life continues for a month, 2 months, a year. The man with the big car, she calls him boss, teaches her a few things that men like. Since she's underage, men pay a premium for her. She lives in a penthouse. She orders service, room service, whenever she wants. Occasionally, she thinks about her folks back home, but their lives now seem so boring and provincial. She can hardly believe she grew up there. She has a brief scare when she sees her picture on the back of a milk carton with the headline, "Have you seen this child?" But by now she has blonde hair, and with all the makeup and body-piercing jewelry she wears, nobody would mistake her for that child. Besides, most of her friends now are runaways, and nobody squeals in Detroit. After a year, the first sallow signs of illness appear, and it amazes her how fast the boss turns mean. "These days, we can't mess around," he growls, and before she knows it, she's out on the street without a penny to her name. She still turns a couple of tricks a night, but they don't pay much, and all the money goes to support her habit. When winter blows in, she finds herself sleeping on metal grates outside the big department stores. Sleeping's not the right word. A teenage girl at night in downtown Detroit can never relax her guard. Dark bands circle her eyes. Her cough worsens. One night as she lies awake listening for footsteps, all of a sudden everything about her life looks different. She no longer feels like a woman of the world. She feels like a little lost girl in a cold and frightening city, and she begins to whimper. Her pockets are empty. She's hungry. She needs a fix. She pulls her legs underneath her and shivers under the newspapers she's piled on top of her coat. Something jolts a synapse of memory, and a single image fills her mind of May in Traverse City, when a million cherry blossoms bloom at once, with her golden retriever dashing through the rows and rows of blossomy trees in order to chase a tennis ball. "God, why did I ever leave?" she says to herself. Pain stabs at her heart. "My dog back home eats better than I do." She's sobbing, and she knows in a flash that more than anything else in the world, she wants to go home. 3 straight phone calls, 3 straight connections with the answering machine. She hangs up without leaving a message the first 2 times, but the third time she says, "Dad, Mom, it's me. I was wondering about maybe coming home. I'm catching a bus up your way, and I'll be there about midnight tomorrow. If you're not there, well, I guess I'll just stay on the bus until I come to Canada." It takes about 7 hours for a bus to make all the stops between Detroit and Traverse City. And during that time, she realizes the flaws in her plan. What if her parents were out of town and they missed the message? Shouldn't she have waited another day or two and maybe she could have talked to them? And even if they are home, they probably wrote her off as dead long ago. She should have given them some time to overcome the shock. Her thoughts bounce back and forth between those worries and the speech she's preparing for her father. "Dad, I'm sorry. I know I was wrong. It's not your fault. It's all mine. Dad, can you please forgive me?" She says the words over and over again, but her throat tightens even as she rehearses them. She hasn't apologized to anyone in years. The bus has been driving with lights on since Bay City. Tiny snowflakes hit the pavement, worn by thousands of tires, and the asphalt steams. She's forgotten how dark it gets at night out here. A deer darts across the road. The bus swerves. Every so often there's a billboard, a sign posting the mileage to Traverse City. Oh, God. When the bus finally rolls into the station, its air brakes hissing in protest, the driver announces in a crackly voice over the microphone, 15 minutes, folks, that's all we have. 15 minutes to decide her life. She checks herself in a compact mirror, smooths her hair, licks the lipstick off her teeth. She looks at the tobacco stains on her fingertips and wonders if her parents will notice, if they're even there. She walks into the terminal, not knowing what to expect. Not one of the 1,000 scenes that have played out in her mind prepare her for what she sees. There in the concrete walls and plastic chairs bus terminal in Traverse City, Michigan, stands a group of 40 brothers and sisters and great aunts and uncles and cousins, and a grandmother and a great-grandmother to boot. They're all wearing goofy party hats, blowing noisemakers, and taped across the entire wall of the terminal is a computer-generated banner that reads, "Welcome home." Out of the crowd of well-wishers breaks her dad. She stares out through the tears, quivering in her eyes like hot mercury, and she begins the memorized speech. "Dad, I'm sorry, I know." He interrupts her. "Hush, child." He says, "We've got no time for that. No time for apologies. You'll be late for the party. There's a banquet waiting for you at home." I always get choked up when I read that. I've read it 15 times because it's a story of my life. It's a story of your life. That God shows us grace. Didn't deserve it. Don't expect it. You recognize the story. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. It's a story of us when we get away from God, even though we have maybe served him and are serving him, and we do something really stupid and dumb. And is God going to accept me? Is God going to love me? And we come back to him and say, "God, I'm so sorry." And he says, "Shut up. You're my child. We're having a party tonight." It's the story of every person who's, for the first time in their life, come to Christ and said, "My life's an absolute mess. It's not going where I want it to go. There's an empty feeling inside. I don't understand it. I don't know what it is. I'm going to try Jesus." And we come to him and we say, "God, I don't know how you can love me. I don't know how you can ever forgive me for the things I've done." And he says the same thing. "Hush. I forgave you a long time ago. You're just finally realizing it now. Welcome home." Would you just bow your heads and close your eyes for a minute? Maybe you're here today and you do not know the grace of God. You're not quite sure all about it. But it's not about today. The story of the Good Samaritan. The recognition that we've all broken the laws of God. Therefore, we're all guilty before him. But today there's a spark of something in your heart, your spirit that says, maybe there's a chance. Maybe God does love me after all. Maybe he will forgive me for my sins. Get me on the right side of the door. If you've never done it before, but this morning you want to, I'm just going to ask you very quick. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to ask you to stand or point you out. I just want to pray for you in closing. If you've never done that before, I just want you to just lift your hand up and put it down again. I'd love to pray for you today. Yes, thank you. Anybody else? Now, this doesn't only apply. What we talked about today doesn't only apply to a person who doesn't know Jesus. It applies to every one of us because we all wander at times. We get away from God. We're not where we're supposed to be. And God just says, come on back. Come on back. It's where grace lives, in my presence. I can invite you to stand with me. I want to pray for you today. And as I pray, if there's just something inside that this is, wow, this really spoke to me today, then I want you to take this prayer, internalize it, make it your prayer. Kind of almost as if you don't have to actually repeat the words, but as if you're repeating the words. So, Heavenly Father, just like this girl in this story, comes back to her parents, not knowing what the response will be, only to find out that there's a party going, our daughter's back. Everything is the way it should be. That's what happens when we come to you. It's the way it should be. It's the way you meant it to be. for us to be with you, forgiven completely. Nothing between us, no barriers, no hindrances. It's just you and I in this incredible relationship. That's what you meant it to be. So God, for every person today that this just kind of speaks to their spirit, their soul today, as they might even say, God, forgive me, just whispering it in or just speaking it in their own mind, God, forgive me. And then we hear these words, child, welcome home. You're forgiven 100%. You don't have to earn my love. You don't have to earn my forgiveness. You just have to come back to where you belong. And we do that today with such joy and thanksgiving that we serve a God with this incredible thing called grace. And we just say thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. Sing the song again with us this morning. Think of it this morning. All that he has done for us. That's why we call it what it is, Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound. I hope you have a fantastic week this week. Walk in the grace that God has given to you. Enjoy being in the presence of God. His gift is for you. God bless you.